Hello everyone and welcome back to a best of 5 series of professional StarCraft 2. Today it's time for a Protoss versus Protoss, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on Blackburn. Now, a couple of days ago, I casted a best of 5 series featuring our blue Protoss player here, where he went up against Lambo. And let's just say in that particular series, he decided to play rather aggressively, right? He decided to go for some very cheesy strategies. I think that he might very well be going for something similar right here in game number 1 here as well. So in the bottom left-hand corner of Blackburn, already going for a proxy pylon on the other side of the map, we have none other than Astrea. And Astrea, of course, is from the United States of America. Now, I noticed that in the YouTube comments section, a lot of you are from the USA as well, and you really enjoyed watching someone from your country compete. So I figured today, let us have a look at another best of 5 that you've recently played. Now, this particular one is the Grand Finals of the ESL Open Cup number 103. And this time around, his opponent is a very highly ranked Protoss player, one of the very best. So I don't know exactly how this one is going to play out. We're playing here with the red Protoss pieces from South Korea. We have none other than Zest. Alright, now Zest has just decided to steal his opponent's gas. Not entirely sure how useful that will be, because I think that Astrea is gonna go for an all-out assault. Obviously, there are multiple cheeses you can go for. Cybercore is coming up. Second gateway right now for Zest is coming up as well. But I think, yeah, with double gateway at this point, I mean, there's gonna be a couple of zealots being chrono boosted out here already. There is a pylon at home. Is Astrea gonna go? Yeah, he's gonna go Cybercore here as well as a follow-up, slowly saturating one of his gases. He's probably not going to be able to mine from the second gas for a very long time, but this is going to be a tricky one here for Zest. He's going to have to put down shield batteries pretty much right away. Now, he did create what seems to be a full wall-off right over here, so these zealots are going to have a rather hard time, but already, okay, he scouted right there with the worker exactly which one of the structures is the Cybercore, so he decides to go straight after that one as well. Warp gates, I mean, as long as these zealots stay on top of it, it's never going to finish up. He really needs shield batteries, though. He probably needed a zealot as well. Zest completely misreading this right now and not really respecting this push all too often. More zealots are just about to come up. There's a stalker here as a follow-up too. Astrea is going completely all in. I mean, there's one adept right now, but adepts, I mean, they don't really deal that much damage, do they? Oh my god, well, you're gonna be able to shade them around, so technically speaking, zealots shouldn't be able to kill them, but zealots deal one hell of a lot of damage. There's a follow-up wall-off right here for Zest as well, so that's nicely done, but this shield battery is so incredibly late. There's Stalker number 1 coming out. Second Stalker is gonna be available very soon as well. There's a second adept, but at this point, the Stalkers can just, well, poke these units to death over the course of a couple of seconds, right? I mean, yeah, there's a shield battery here, but that one will run out of energy very quickly. Turns out the zealots can even out DPS it. I think one of them or two of them have gone down. There's nothing anymore for Zest. I think that's GG. Yeah. Game number 1 goes in favor of the American. Game number 2. We are on Hardwire, and Astrea is once again sending out a worker. Come on, Astrea. I mean, they say Americans put cheese on everything. Does that count StarCraft 2 Pro matches as well? I guess so far. I mean, Florencio is from the US as well, right? I mean, I've casted plenty of his matches. He's definitely also very cheesy. Neve really isn't. Scarlet is from Canada, so I guess it's still North America at the very least. Obviously, Specials from Mexico. No, there's definitely a lot of macro going on there as well. And I know that Astrea is perfectly capable of playing macro, but once again, he's planted down a pylon on the other side of the map. It's some of that dirty, plasticky American cheese, you know? Like the stuff that, like, kind of tastes like cheese, but you're not entirely sure if you're actually eating plastic. I mean, it melts really well. So, you know, I guess that's something. Anyways, once again, double proxy gateway right here on Hardwire alley. At this point, Zest is gonna go for a high ground wall-off. I think that's probably a better choice. Low ground here would be a bit of a problem. He's also once more sending a scouting worker across the map, and it's actually a forge right now as a follow-up too. So double proxy gateway into a forge. Zest is gonna go for the more classical approach as well. Double gateway here on top of the ramp, and there's a pylon. Astrea is going for a delayed cannon rush, and Zest is definitely picking up on this right now, where he's like, okay, is this even a cannon rush right now? Because that pylon is so very late. Anyways, I think zealots are probably still going to be coming up. Zest is going for his own cybercore as well as a forge. So he actually decided to go for the forge first. Astrea building 2 more pylons here. I guess that is a clear indication that he is doubling down on the cannon rush. At the same time, Zest is also planting a pylon on the other side of the map. outside the third base, or what normally would be the third base of the Protoss player. I don't think this game is gonna last that long. All right, so a couple of photon cannons are coming up. Zest is just trying to defend this. He's gonna go for his own defensive photon cannons. Turns out 2 photon cannons is better than 1. So the battle right here on the left side should be won. But at this point, the photon cannon on the low ground here is mostly uncontested. Then again, I don't think it's in range of a whole lot. Although once the forge falls, I think this probe is going to be able to go into the main base. And then additional photon cannons can be planted down over here as well. Zest hasn't started up any gateway units just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts up something here in a little bit. He's just adding on a ton of static defense of his own. Yeah, this should be killed here before the photon cannon in red should fall, I think. Oh, it's gonna be close. Okay. Simultaneous death animation. Zest going for a proxy Stargate. So his counter right here. So what do we make the gateways for, by the way? His counter right here, I guess, is to go for a Stargate versus someone who's cannon rushing him. Fair enough. This seems a little bit conflicted, though, from Astrea, right? I mean, obviously, he can follow this up as well with Stalkers if he really wants to. Or he's gonna go for Adepts instead. Okay, I guess if you can shade Adepts behind your opponent's mineral line, that is pretty good, too. But Zest is already gonna go for a Stalker of his own. Nexus on the low ground here for Astrea. I guess he's trying to, like, sort of, like, soft contain his opponent on one base. There is a shield battery coming up here as well for Zest, just to protect his mineral line a little bit better, too. The problem is that Astrea has absolutely nothing that shoots up at this point in the game. I mean, he's got 1 Adept. Maybe the Adept can, like, lay on its back or something and then, like, throw those little things up in the air. But as far as I can tell here, there's absolutely nothing that Astrea can do against a Void Ray. So, Void Ray number 1 is going to be available very soon. He's only going to need 1. At the same time, though, this can deal a ton of damage, too. Yeah, 2 of these Adepts, obviously, is enough to one-shot a worker. So, probes are already being picked off. 2 Stalkers are coming up right now for Astrea. They're about 90% of the way done. He does not have energy for a recall, though. So it takes 50 energy right here to go for a recall on the Nexus, and he doesn't have that available right now. Getting a little bit greedy on the Chrono Boost, I guess, on the other side of the map. So Stalkers are going to be available, but both players are losing so much stuff. This should be an advantage, though, for Zest, right? I mean, a second Void Ray is going to be available soon as well. I mean, with battery overcharge, there is, I guess, a recall available over here. With battery overcharge, he really needs a shield battery. Yeah. With battery overcharge, I've got a feeling that... Oh my god, he just used the prismatic alignment on the Nexus. I think he may assume that this is only a single base Protoss right now, but Astrea is going very aggressively. You know what? This could be a huge misread, though. Stalker's getting a couple of free hits in. Okay. I mean, 1 Stalker for a Void Ray is a phenomenal trade right here for Astrea, who's going for additional gateway units on the other side of the map as well. This Nexus will go down. I think Zest is making the assumption that this is 1 base blue, right? Like, otherwise, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Anyways, that base will be destroyed. Still, though, Void Rays are continuously coming up here. The Adepts on the other side of the map were taken care of. This Stalker right now is apparently in charge of that. 4 confirmed kills to its name. Third Void Ray is going to be available very soon. 4th Void Ray is already being chrono boosted out. I think this is still an advantage right here for Zest. I mean, you can maybe recall these units every once in a while, but if they're out of range here, okay, of the battery, then it's going to be extremely difficult. At this point, though, he just targeted it down. And even though prismatic alignment does slow down these Void Rays and it can't catch up with the Stalker, it's a little bit too much right now for the Korean. Okay, Curious Minds, map number 3. Probe is selected. Ooh, we're just forcing the probes on the close by mineral patches this time around. Okay, no. That's just the low ground pylon. Every single game I've seen him play recently seems to just be sending the probe out as soon as the game begins. This time around, though, it seems like we have standard start. So Curious Minds is the smallest map in the current map pool of StarCraft 2. So normally, naturally, that would sort of lead towards like a more cheesy game. But the thing about Curious Minds as well is that it's got this very, easy to defend ramp leading up towards the high ground, right? So on a lot of maps, we don't actually have this little ramp over here. And obviously, if it's like a flat terrain, it's significantly easier to defend. So Curious Minds, despite the fact that it's relatively short in rush distance, it is actually quite difficult to attack on. Other than, of course, the third base. I mean, this third base is attackable by, like, I don't know, 5 different angles. Anyways, so Astrea, okay, this time around not going for anything crazy. Although he did go for the double gas inside of the main base a little bit before his opponent. Obviously, one of the reasons why is that you don't really want to get that gas stolen. If Zest at this point would see that this gas wasn't building yet, he would definitely plant his own right over there. But, I mean, the same obviously would happen on the other side of the map. So there's this weird, like, early game shenanigans in Protoss versus Protoss where you don't really want to mine the gas necessarily, but you also don't want your opponent to steal the gas. And you also do want to make a nexus, but you don't really want your opponent to make a nexus. So a lot of the time we do see, like, structures coming up on both sides of the natural, especially when there's, you know, these structures creating a wall off on top of the natural ramp. There's a lot of funny little mind games going on early on in PvP, where you sort of have to take structures before you actually want them. Anyways, Cyber Cores here are coming up. Both players blocking the potential for a nexus here, but you can see mineral-wise they're basically identical. A Zealot was produced here. Same can be said on the other side of the map. Stargate is coming up for Astrea. And a Stargate is coming up here as well for Zest. Look at the production tab. This game is awkwardly even at this point. So now we're coming up on 400 minerals. Are we going to plant down a pylon? Nope. I'm assuming, yep, on the other side of the map we see the same thing happening too. And so far I could have literally casted this entire game just by looking at the production tab. You can sort of guess what's happening. But I do like the early game of PvP though. There's actually a lot of little mind games going on that make it rather complex. Eventually, the scouting workers will be killed, although so far Zest is winning, right? Look at that. Ay, ay, ay. Zagary the Zealot sleeping on the job. He's going to be able to get the prop out eventually. Okay, it's going to be an Oracle versus a Phoenix. Should be an advantage right here for Astrea. Obviously, the probe scouts this as well, right? So the Stargate is one of the few structures in StarCraft 2 where you can actually, I think it's actually the only one, where you can see what is building inside of it. No idea why this is a thing, but I've always kind of liked it, being a Zerg player myself, knowing whether or not you need, like, you know, a Spore Crawler against an Oracle, or if you can delay it for a little while longer. Oh my god, look at this beautiful dance. That was weird. Anyways, knowing whether or not you need defense at home is very nice. At this point, the Oracle is going to show up. I mean, the probe is walking the Phoenix, which is a little bit awkward. I think if you can walk the Phoenix, though, you probably want to walk it to the Natural Expo instead. Okay, second Phoenix is going to come out soon. I feel like you need to go, Zest. Go, 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 go. Guess he's busy defending in the meantime on the other side. Probe there did go down. I feel like Zest could have done some damage here. Yeah, definitely could have. Anyways. Yeah, how much do you really hope for here? A little bit of a missed target there by Zest. So this is, to clarify, the grand finals of the ESL Open Cup 103 America. Obviously, Zest being from Korea, I'm pretty sure it just dictates the server that the games are being played on. So this should be a ping advantage right here for Astrea, which is very significant. It is definitely a thing on, like, retargeting right there, for example, right? Because it looks very sloppy when you see Zest accidentally shooting right there with the lasers of the Oracle on a pylon. But a lot of that can be written up to ping. I don't know exactly how much ping you get going, you know, on the US server. I guess they play US East or something like that, or US West, whatever is better for Korea. It kind of depends on where you live in the country, if you're an American, and also, obviously, exactly where Zest lives. Although pretty much all the Koreans that I know seem to live in Seoul. Anyways, what I'm getting at is that ping advantage is a very real thing, especially at the pro level. So those little misfires, most of them can be written up to ping. So, by the way, Phoenix battles are very strange. Let me explain how Phoenix battles work. Phoenixes can move and fire at the same time. So, in Phoenix versus Phoenix battles, if, like, both players have 10 Phoenixes, the fight will happen, and more than likely, all Phoenixes will die, right? Or at least one of them will probably stay alive. However, if it's, like, 12 Phoenixes versus 10... the player with 12 won't win with, like, 2 Phoenixes left over, but he'll win with, like, 6 left over. So, usually, what Zest is doing right now is very dangerous. Usually, the defender's advantage in this matchup is huge, right? Because, as you can imagine, right now, I mean, he's got to go home very quickly okay. The defender's advantage is huge because, obviously, Astrea is getting his Phoenixes out closer to this battle. Oracle's still very helpful. One thing to note as well is that Astrea obviously was already building Phoenixes earlier on. At this point, though, he did kind of fall behind in that department. We don't really want to go for any upgrades here. Astrea did go for the Fleet Beacon right now. I actually love the revelation here. Zest can keep track of his opponent very well. Anyways, Fleet Beacon has an upgrade called Anion Pulse Crystals that gives Phoenixes +2 range. So obviously at that point, Astrea can take the fight and chase his opponent down while never, at least in theory, taking any damage on his own Phoenixes. The only problem, okay, is that that structure is very expensive. Love this actually from Astrea, putting a random pylon in a random location, but it's just to see incoming Phoenixes here. He's doing the same on the left side too. He did sneak out a third Nexus as well on the right side. Zest is being very adventurous. I think if you're playing ladder games and you're in this very strange, you know, situation, you probably want to do what Astrea is doing here and just, like, play very laid back and hope your opponent overextends and makes a mistake. Anyways, Astrea, though, once this upgrade finishes, he's gonna have a grand old time. There's gonna be, like, I don't know, 45 seconds or so, maybe even a minute, depending on chrono boosts, where his opponent won't have that upgrade. And in theory, at least, that should be amazing. Now, that Oracle from earlier did split itself off from the pack of Phoenixes once again. Phoenixes have probably shown themselves on the right side right now, so Astrea will likely be flying in this direction too, so that gives this Oracle a good chance to deal a bunch of damage inside of the main base. Yeah, I really like this. Clever 1-2 punch right here from Zest. He's now killed 11 workers, which really is super significant. He's also still thinking about engaging right here. Anion Pulse Crystals at this point is done right now here for Astrea, though, so he's gonna have more range. Look at the purple lasers. +1 flyer attacks coming up as well for Astrea. Phoenixes shoot from both sides at the same time. So effectively they get +2 damage for every single one of these upgrades, which is huge. Alright. So Phoenix 15 versus 15 right now, or 14 versus 15, with Zest losing one of them. At some point, though, this is gonna clash and the entire game is gonna be decided in like 3 seconds. Okay, maybe 10. So the question is, when do you add on a third Stargate? Okay, instead, I guess Zest is gonna go for a carrier. Very risky. Yeah, there's the third Stargate for Astrea, who's gonna double down here on even more Phoenixes. This is such a meme game. Judging from what I've seen from Astrea recently, I would imagine he feels more comfortable playing these sort of memes. But, I don't know, man. I really don't know. This is still Zest we're talking about. Zest seems to be in control so far, right? I don't know. There's a certain... There's a certain attitude he's playing with. Oh my god, the battery over there helping out as well. I guess once the carriers are out... Oh, you already had a third Stargate. I guess so. Anyways, once the carriers are out, those are going to be able to tank a lot of the... Look at this! This is so dumb! Are we going to chase each other down? So look at them stacking all of the Phoenixes as well, right? Ooh, nicely done. Stacking the Phoenixes, so target firing is much harder to do. Obviously, you can make it so that everything is firing in sync. Okay, Astrea at this point definitely getting the upper hand, but carrier number 1 is out. And even though Phoenixes deal a lot of damage, carriers still have a lot of health. And interceptors can obviously mess up the AI quite a bit. Zest also did grab his 4th Nexus a little bit sooner. Astrea is only starting up his right now. The gas count here is obviously very critical here. So Zest is just going for the Skytles army. Slowly but surely. Alright, well, I expected the battle to just sort of happen and then everything to die in about a heartbeat, but... The only problem here is that carriers are also way slower, right? Yeah, so I like this from Astrea. He's like, okay, you want to go carriers? That works for me, mate. I'll just lift up your entire mineral line and kill pretty much everything. And by the time that the carriers get back home, everything's already dead. Recall, though, is going to be used because instead, what Zest has decided to do is go for a counterattack. This is very dangerous. 2 carriers available at this point for Astrea, who's just decided to give up the base entirely. Probes are retargeted right now towards another expansion, I guess. One thing to note as well is that carriers need like a moment to get all of their interceptor ships out. So Zest attacking the Nexus over here actually is a benefit for him in more than just one way. Because he can immediately retarget all of those interceptors towards his opponent's carriers, for example, if he wants to. So right now the carriers, once again, have all of the interceptors inside of them, and you do want them deployed. Anyways. Are we at 5 Stargate Phoenix right now? One thing Astrea doesn't know is that Zest... Okay, he does know this. Zest has been molded by the cheese. Even though the American server is very cheesy, the Korean one is even cheesier, right? And Zest, I mean, he's one of the reasons why, why that's the case. Anyways, look at the carriers taking so much damage so very quickly at this point. That's the clash I was talking about earlier. Carriers are being target fired one at a time. Zest getting the jump on his opponent. Battery overcharge right now is nice, I suppose, but is it really saving him in any way? The thing is, right, the carriers are, or sorry, his phoenixes are just target firing down the opponent's phoenixes one at a time, and even a battery overcharge isn't gonna save you. Zest does win the game. All right, gentlemen. Are we sending out any probes? Astrea not sending out any of his. Zest also not sending out any of his. I think we've got ourselves a relatively standard macro game. So I was a little curious just now, and I wondered how much total earnings Zest has had in his StarCraft 2 career as far as tournament winnings go. And it's actually a little bit higher than I realized. I thought it was maybe right around 400,000, 500,000 or so. But apparently Zest has had a total approximate earnings as far as tournament winnings go of $663,000. Definitely not bad whatsoever, right? Definitely very impressive. Also, interestingly enough, and I don't really understand this all too well, it also says that Zest hasn't done his mandatory military service yet, even though he's born in 1992. By the way, best year. Let me just say, 1992, best year to be born. Totally not biased. Anyways, what I do know though is that Parting announced his retirement like a couple of days ago, like a week or two ago at this point, because he has to go do his military service over in South Korea, and Parting is born in 1994. So, if Parting is a couple years younger than Zest, why hasn't... I don't understand. Maybe Zest has some sort of exception, or maybe he's managed to delay it successfully for a certain amount of time. I don't know. Anyways, if someone happens to know if Zest also still has to go do his mandatory military service, let me know down below in the comment section. I would really like to know. It might create this very strange scenario, right? By the way, both players going for what seems to be standard builds so far. Anyways, it might create this very strange scenario where by the end of 2021, or what year is it? 22? By the end of this year, there might not be that many great Protoss players available because a lot of them are in the military or just came back. So for example, Classic and Hero recently came back, but they're not quite as good as they used to be before they went to the military. And obviously Parting with going to the military, and Zest may be going to the military as well, I can imagine at the very least. It might create this very weird dynamic where Protoss isn't going to win a whole lot of stuff because it's quite literally just Trap participating over in Korea at like the top level. I mean, a lot can change obviously in you know, in like 6 to 12 months time. Maybe Hero, maybe Classic, and once again get back to greatness. But I have noticed that, at least in the past, whenever players came back, they never really got back to like their former shape, or at the very least not as easily. Anyways, it might create a weird scenario where like balance-wise, Protoss is just fine, but tournament wins-wise, Protoss might not be winning that many tournaments anymore because of the fact that a lot of the great Protoss players are in the military. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. But it is a little bit funny. Trap is what year? 1994 as well. Wait, so Parting has to go do his mandatory military service right now? And Trap being born in the same year, just a couple months earlier? Yeah, Trap is born in March 1994. Parting born in August 1994. I don't get it. Maybe someone can enlighten me down below in the comment section. I thought you had to go do it before you're 28 years old, but Zest being 29, Anyways. A little bit of a skirmish right here in the earlier stages of the game. We did see a Stargate opener here from Zest, so he's going to be able to get that Oracle out. That does mean an ever so slightly faster Nexus right here for Astrea, and Astrea also, has opted for a couple more sentries rather than invest into that Stargate with an Oracle. Both players, though, transitioning right now into a Twilight Council as well. Let's see how much damage this Oracle can deal. Come on. Astrea. Pay attention, my man. Yeah. Any probe right here is too many. Like, you can maybe lose 1 or 2. 5 is too much. Yeah, that's where that ping once again comes into the mix. Zest also sending out a probe. Looking for a probe on the natural too. 6 workers here is a little too many, to be honest. Not really what you're looking for at all. Obviously, this was relatively low commitment by Zest. Revelation is still a super useful skill later on into the game too. Obviously, Stasis Wards can also come into the play. Or come into the mix. Anyways. Small economic advantage right here for Zest at this point, despite the fact that he went for a later Nexus. And he's now going to go for a Gateway on the other side of the map as well. Hallucination here is awesome for Astrea. So that's the advantage of going for those sentries a little bit sooner. It allows you to go for Yeah, those hallucinations. 75 energy each. You can keep sending them out. Get a lot of information on your opponent. The only thing that Astrea doesn't know about yet, though, is this proxy gateway on the other side of the map. So, if you warp in from a pylon that's powering a gateway as well, the warp in is significantly quicker. So, yeah, I think that Zest does want to go for some pressure here very soon. It's going to be 4 gateways in total. Not a significant amount of dedication, but definitely something he wants to deal damage with, especially if Astrea goes for this low ground expo over here. One of the stalkers actually got separated. Probe gets separated as well. This one over here also not in range of the Nexus shield battery. So, I mean, if he loses 2 of these right now, there's Blink a little bit sooner. Okay, somehow, some way, Zest decided to be a merciful god, knowing he would chase him anyway. That's 2 stalkers, though, going down for free. Blink is finishing up right here as well for our blue Protoss player. One of the sentries, uncharacteristically out of position. Both of them now end up going down. There is an Immortal on the production tab for Astrea, but this is already Zest significantly out-controlling his opponent. Or just, you know, punishing mistakes. Right? Yeah, he decides to just blink right on top of it. He knows that the battery is not going to be overcharged forever. And honestly, I think this might just be game over very soon. Is there enough right now for Astrea to hold on? I mean, he needs to, like, make a new pylon to power up that robo facility once again. This is where those Korean players in particular are very scary. They just see one little mistake and they, you know, jump straight on it. Zest now going for his own third Nexus on the back of this, so he doesn't necessarily need to win here. Yeah, with good blink control, you can keep these stalkers alive for a very long time. Good job right here by Astrea. But I've got a feeling that this is already a little bit too much. I mean, once an Immortal is out, maybe that can change the tide of battle, but 20 workers at this stage in the game. 20 supply advantage here as well for Zest, just straight up. Most of that is indeed in workers, but... Alright. With another battery overcharge right now being available, Zest did decide to back off for a little bit. He doesn't really need to win over here, yeah. He decided to go for the robo facility right now at home, as well as the Twilight Council, as well as 3 more gateways. 4 more gateways, bringing the grand total up to 8. 8 gateways is going to allow you to produce a ton of units very quickly. And I've got a feeling that Zest is probably just going to try and go for another push here in just a little bit. At the very least, Astrea lives for now. So what exactly can you do to try and come back into this? One thing you can do is just play from behind. Probably not a great idea. One thing you can do is make a Dark Shrine, right? Dark Shrine obviously also an option, but probably also not a great idea against someone of the caliber of Zest. I wouldn't mind maybe seeing a Robo Bay and trying to go for some Disruptors instead and try and see if you can get a good Purification Nova. Obviously, though, that's quite the commitment because you got to pay for both the Robo Bay as well as all the production time, obviously, so I'm not exactly sure. Astrea decides to plant down his own third Nexus. He must know, though, that at this point he really can't have that much economy compared to his opponent, okay? Even the Observer right there goes down for free. Love the posturing as well by Zest. You see that? Aggressively pushing down the ramp. And then, you know, sniping the Observer and then going back once again. Astrea did send out a couple of Adepts. Okay, you know what? If these can magically kill an entire base worth, maybe that can work out. Few Zealots here are being warped in to try and deal with that. Charge at this point, of course, is done, so they're going to be taken care of. Zest actually coming in from a completely different angle right now. Is he going to blink straight on top of this army? Okay, he could if he really wanted to. Instead, he's going to try and charge forward. Backing off once again, already triggering that battery overcharge. When the battery's overcharged, just back off. Wait a little bit until it runs out. 8 gateways at this point available here as well, though, for the Korean player. And at this point, I think that StarCraft 2 may have just become a numbers game. Look at the resource count in the top left-hand corner of their armies. Obviously, Protoss is very microable, but against someone of the strength and the caliber of Zest, it's likely not gonna happen, and just like that, it is gonna be Zest who turns out to be the best.